It's also a criminal offence if I give you that money when I know or have reasonable cause to suspect that it will or may be used for the purposes of terrorism. So please provide me with an exemption so I can pay this money and act consistent with statute. So all I was asking HMRC, give me the exemption. When they said we have to collect taxes that are lawfully due. And my reply was, oh good, I want to pay taxes that are lawfully due. But these statutes say that it's illegal for me to pay you and illegal for you to ask. Can we clear this up, please?
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make war history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. And let's make war history.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
This video is a recording of a talk I gave to a Bitcoin meetup about why paying HMRC any form of tax contravenes the Terrorism Act and the International Criminal Court Act, and I shared with them my journey using the Probity Code process. You want to find out more, go to probitycode.com. Please share this video far and wide so that we can protest what this government is doing with our money. No war, not in our name. Now, just as a note of caution, nothing I say here should be taken as legal advice. I'm not a qualified legal professional. Whatever actions you take, you do in your own cognizance, and you need to be responsible for that. And for the sake of clarification, I want to make it clear that it is illegal to fund genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and acts of terrorism.
Excuse me, good evening, thank you. I'm now going to begin. I want to let you know that I'm being videoed. No, we're not going to video any of you.
Oh.
It's all on...
It's all about you.
It's all about Crypto Rich. Don't ever forget that. So, no, because I didn't tell anybody, I didn't ask your permission. I'm just letting you know, so that in order to maintain your anonymity, it's going to be on me. I don't know. I may just use it for training purposes.
What if we want to heckle you?
Go for it.
That might increase his subs. You never know.
That's right. Make it controversial.
Have you heard of editing?
We want to pay tax. We want to pay more tax. We want to own nothing and be happy. Give it all away. Thank you so much for being here. I run a YouTube channel on ODYSEE, Rumble, Podbean, and on Twitter under the name of Crypto Rich. I started in April 2017, and it used to be purely crypto. And then around about Brexit, life got rather exciting and interesting. And then come lockdown, it got far too exciting. Well, not exciting, far too interesting. So I do more and more political stuff. When I was born in Pakistan, but I grew up in London. And when I was 18, I joined the anti-apartheid movement. At the time, P.W. Botha was coming to the UK on a state visit. And I went to a school where 55% of the kids were African Caribbean. The next rump were Gujaratis. And then the next rump were Irish Catholics. And I'm like, they're inviting P.W. Botha to this country. And this is apartheid. So I got involved in politics there, joined the anti-apartheid movement, and I've been interested in politics ever since. And I'm going to tell you my own personal story where I am legally, lawfully withholding tax. HMRC, no. I've been in communication with them about this. Beautiful. So I'm going to share my story about it, right? Now, I've got a few questions to ask you, and there will be a Q&A. So you can ask questions and everything, right? So, if you just put your hand up, right, when I ask this, if you want to say, what are some of the central and local government fines, fees, levies, and taxes that we pay? Just name some of them. Council tax. Parking fines. Road tax. VAT. PCNs. Inheritance tax. Capital gains tax.
Inflation.
We agree for
This one, for this conversation, I don't know how we're going to tell HMRC I'm not paying inflation. Income tax.
Corporation tax.
Corporation tax.
Bus lane fines. Bus lane.
Bus lane fines,
Speeding fines.
court fines, speeding fines,
Congestion charge.
congestion charge,
ULEZ.
LTN fines, ULEZ fines.
Yeah.
There's actually 235 taxes.
Oh, got a bit more to go then.
That's right. You know, we're not going to go through all of them. We're not going to go through all of them, right? Now, what happens? Every single one, that speeding ticket you got, that parking lane violation, your court fines, your income tax, your capital gains tax, your inheritance tax, your council tax, every single one goes into what's called the consolidated fund. This was set up in 1787. So all those different forms of revenue, BBC license, all goes into the consolidated fund. And from there, it's dispersed. Some goes for roads, some goes for local authorities, some goes for the NHS, and some of it goes to pay for armaments. The Ministry of Offence, MI6, MI5, the 77th Brigade. I recorded a video today with a doctor from Northern Ireland who she's the only person in Britain who actually got sent to prison for violating the coronavirus regulations. And one of the things, she was with a Mackenzie friend in the video who helped her through these cases that she's been dealing with. There was an MP, Gavin Williamson, who asked in Houses of Parliament whether the army had been deployed during the whole coronavirus episode. And the Ministry of Defence response was yes. And there was a Dutch MP recently who said that it was also a military exercise, a military operation. DARPA organised, worked on developing the injections, they funded it. DARPA are part of the US military. So some of the money from your income tax, from your sales tax, your BBC license, goes to those sorts of activities. And I'm sure that thrills your heart, fills it with joy. Now, it also goes to fund noble activities like net zero, the development of CBDCs, which we all want, right? Because we want the government scrutinizing every single transaction that we make. It goes for paying for Keir Starlin's security. I'm going to assert something. Hopefully, at least some of you will be a little bit triggered and reactivated and disagree with me. You won't say anything. Some of you might be like, oh, it's a bit interesting. I can't. And some of you might be like, oh, I like the sound of this. All those different levies, fines, and fees, if you're speeding, your income tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, every time you make those payments, you are committing a criminal offence. It is illegal to pay capital gains tax. It is illegal to pay inheritance tax. Every time you pay your BBC license fee, you are violating statute. It's illegal. Okay.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. All right, we like that.
Tell me more.
Yes. Okay. So hands up if you're surprised by my assertion. You weren't expecting this, right? Hands up if you disagree. Can't be. Can't be.
Does sound a bit too good to be true.
It does sound a bit too good to be true. That's right. Hands up if you're like, yep, absolutely. Yep, I like this one. I like it. You like it, yeah? Okay. All right. Now, some of the taxes, it's easier to commit illegal actions by paying them. I was, up until a few weeks ago, working as a child protection social worker. And I got made redundant because the local authority ran out of money. Because Keir Starling would much rather spend the money on freezing Granny and on sending the money to fund Zelensky's lifestyle. So, but while I was a social worker, I was PAYE. I was breaking the law. However, I think a few years ago, I can't remember the years when it qualifies, I sold a digital good. And I made a capital gain on the digital good, a decentralized digital good that's been around for a while, that's created a whole new paradigm for money. I sold some Bitcoin, and there was a capital gain on the Bitcoin. So I told HMRC I'm not paying, and I haven't paid them. And they know I haven't paid them, and it's been a year, and I haven't been sent to jail or threatened with court, and I'm going to go through the steps. All this stuff, by the way, I've covered on my channel, what I'm talking about, and I'll keep covering it. And there's a particular website, if you can remember this, bit.ly, bit.ly/makewarhistory. bit.ly/ Make War History, or if you like, bit.ly/lawful tax protest. And it will take you to a website that's called probityco.com. And all these steps that I'm following are outlined on that website. Plus they have fortnightly calls every Monday, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And there was one this Monday gone, so the next one will be in 2 Mondays' time. And you register on the website, they send you the Zoom link on the day, and it's a Q&A. You can ask questions and stuff. The International Criminal Court Act was passed in the year 2000 by Parliament. It's statute, legislation. And the Terrorism Act, 2001, also passed by Parliament. It's statute. What those two acts taken together make it a criminal offence to give money to any organisation, directly or indirectly, that facilitates or funds genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or acts of terrorism. Now, those statutes also define what is meant by genocide. You know, there's a debate out there in the mainstream media that whether or not people on one side of the fence say, no, what's happening in Gaza isn't a genocide. People on the other side of their argument say, no, it is a genocide. There's that debate. Parliament has its own definition of genocide. The killing of 2 or more people that are united by nationality, race, ethnicity, or religion. That's it.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty good, right? I cannot think of a worse crime than the mass slaughter of people through war. And I thought long and hard, you know, I work in child protection. So I work with abused children. It's horrific what happens to children. But where thousands and thousands and thousands of people are killed for the war profiteers because of the arguments that the gangsters who rule over our lives are having with each other. And they want to send our daughters and our sons to engage in those wars, in their conflicts, so they can profit out of it, out of the blood of the slain. So, by the way, I'm Muslim, but for 10 years I went to Quaker meetings. That's the kind of Muslim I am. I'm up for a world where human beings honor human beings. And the worst crime, like I said, I think is war. Whether it's Ukrainians killing Russians, or the British bombing the Yemenis, or Israelis killing Palestinians, or Palestinians killing Israel, wherever it goes on, you know, for a fraction of the money that war costs, we could negotiate peace. We could cause peace. So now there are people out there who support particular conflicts. There are people out there who support Israel. There are people out there who support Gaza. There are people out there who think Putin is a dictator and needs to be stopped. There are people out there who think, no, Putin needs to defend the Russians in Ukraine. But there may be other reasons that people have, or people may have, for not committing the criminal offense of paying taxes. You may not want to fund CBDCs. You may not want to fund net zero, the lunacy of climate change, where you will be cold, own nothing, and be miserable eating bugs. You may not want to fund that. You may not want to fund all sorts of other activities that this government is engaging in that we don't have a say in. We didn't vote for this. We didn't vote for freezing Imperial Granny, all that sort of stuff, right? So you find your place in that discourse. It may be that you just want to hold on to the money because the government's going to keep printing pounds and things are going to get more and more expensive, and they're going to keep squeezing us through the tax regime so that we are poorer and poorer and poorer. Well, hold on to your fiat. Sorry, I called it money, I apologize. Hold on to your shitcoin. Your pound shitcoin, right? Because right now that's the main medium of exchange. Okay, so it's a criminal offense. The International Criminal Court Act 2001, Section 52 makes it a criminal offense for a person to engage in conduct ancillary to war crimes, crimes against humanity, and or genocide. This includes providing funding to agencies that carry out war crimes, crimes against humanity and or genocide. Now there's a website, legislation.gov.uk, that has all the statutes that are in effect. So you can find it on that and check it out for yourself. Section 78 is the kind of clause that isn't common in all statutes, but it was specifically put in with this one. This act binds the Crown and applies to persons in the public service of the Crown and property held for the purposes of the public service of the Crown as it applies to other persons and property. Meaning, the International Criminal Court Act applies to me and it applies to all agencies and agents of the Crown. The government are not exempt. Government agents are not exempt. And the Supreme Court ruled, with reference to the Terrorism Act, that it applies to military and quasi-military activities of the UK government, even where they've been sanctioned by Parliament. Now, the Terrorism Act, but it's to do with causing violence or harm for a political purpose. That's terrorism. And that includes, when the British Navy dropped bombs on Yemen. That's terrorism. A person commits an offence if he becomes concerned in an arrangement as a result of which money or other property is made available or is to be made available to another, and he knows or has reasonable cause to suspect that it will or may be used for the purposes of terrorism. Now, the UK, the Air Force, are running reconnaissance flights over Israel, providing them with intelligence that they can then use in their slaughter of Palestinians. I know that. I know HMRC, some of the money that I give to HMRC is going to be used for terrorism. It's going to be used to facilitate genocide. I downloaded from the website a trust form. Now, who knows what trusts are? Okay, you may know more than me. Right? Some of this stuff, right, is so like mind-bending. Trust law is older than statute. It's older than the Magna Carta. A will is a form of trust. I'm going to give you this money because I'm off to the Crusades to go and kill some of those infidels, but you're going to use this money to look after my family, and these are the conditions. And it's binding. You're honor bound to honor the conditions of the trust. There's no getting out. And it's also trusts are the way noble people like Rishi Sunak and his ilk, they don't pay tax because they know to do so would be illegal. So I put the money in trust, and here's what the trust said. So in a trust, there's three parties to a trust. There's the settler, which is myself. There's the trustee, the person who's going to do what's required in the trust, and then there's beneficiaries. So I'm the settler. I put my money in a trust, and I'll explain exactly what I did in a moment. You're the trustee. You're bound to follow the conditions of the trust and then disperse the money or the property or whatever according to the trust. So I downloaded the trust form, and essentially what I said, as the settler and the trustee, I think it was the same person.
Sorry, where did you get the form from?
From the ODYSEE website, right? And it's very simple. There's just a few sections to fill in, right? I put in my self-assessment claim for this capital gains tax, and then I said, okay, here is the trust form. Filled it out. I owe this much. The primary beneficiary is HMRC. And I actually didn't send them any money. What I did was I took 5% of, you can take 5 to 10% of the amount that's owed, and you put it in a separate account, or you put it in an envelope or in a strong box. So it's actually there with the original trust documents. And the trust documents, I got them notarized. I got it witnessed or authorized by a solicitor. They just sign the form. They don't say whether it's accurate or give me any legal advice on it, right? But it says, you, HMRC, can have all this money provided by such and such a date, you can demonstrate, prove that none of this money will be used in violation of these statutes. Because that would be a criminal offense. And the trust lays out the provisions in detail. If you fail to do so by such and such a date, the proceeds will go to the secondary beneficiary, which could be anybody. Could be me, could be you, could be anybody. Now, I did this in November 2023. I sent the trust form. I sent a copy to HMRC, and I said, you've got until January the 31st, 2024. They wrote to me sometime after. I've had about 9 letters back and forth with them, as well as they send me the payments, right? I owe this much, and then they slap on a late payment fee, right? So we had back and forth, back and forth. And essentially what they kept saying to me is you have to pay income tax. And in every single letter that I wrote to them, I said, I am committed to acting in consistent with statute. I do not want to break the law. So it's in documentation, signed. I want to act consistent with statute. Tell me, am I exempt from the provisions of these statutes, and are you exempt? Because here's how these laws work out. You're HMRC. It's a criminal offence for you to ask me for money if you have reasonable cause to believe that that money is going to be used for terrorism, war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide. By asking me for funds that's going to facilitate those activities, you're committing a crime, HMRC. Unless you tell me that you're exempt. Point me to an exemption. In statute, in case law, give me an exemption. It's also a criminal offence. It's also a criminal offence if I give you that money when I know or have reasonable cause to suspect that it will or may be used for the purposes of terrorism. I'm committing a criminal offence. So please provide me with an exemption so I can pay this money and act consistent with statute. But it gets these laws, the Terrorism Act in particular, is so watertight. If you ask me for money and you have reasonable cause to believe that it's going to be used for terrorism, and I have reasonable cause to believe that it's going to be, actually, if I have reasonable cause to believe that it's going to be used for terrorism, and I don't report you to the police, I'm committing a criminal offence. 2 years, maximum penalty. That's all I was asking HMRC, give me the exemption. Not once did they give me any exemption. In fact, they never referenced the International Criminal Court Act or the Terrorism Act in any of their letters to me. They didn't mention them. They kept saying, we have to, at one point they said we have to collect taxes that are lawfully due. And my reply was, oh good, I want to pay taxes that are lawfully due. But these statutes say that it's illegal for me to pay you and illegal for you to ask. Can we clear this up, please? They checked with the solicitor's office. We checked with our solicitor's office, and you have to pay income tax, statutory duty. Oh, good, good. Can you ask your solicitor's office, I wrote this in the letter to them, if the provisions of these statutes apply or not? Just don't ask them. That's all. And then tell me by what reference they don't apply. Because I don't want to break the law, I want to pay my taxes. No such exemption was forthcoming. No, it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then along the way, I'm learning this process. Learning it. And then I submit an affidavit. So an affidavit is a sworn statement of fact. It is court standard evidence. But you can submit an affidavit on anything. You could submit an affidavit that on Wednesday the 27th of November, in this venue, you listened to Crypto Rich and you decided that you were going to subscribe and comment and like to every single one of his videos and post all over social media. And you sign it. Yes, that's right. You've already
Signed on the way in. I promise you, I crossed my heart and hope to die.
So it's not an expression of an opinion, except where you say so, but it is a statement of fact, absolute statement of fact. So I wrote an affidavit, and in my affidavit I said, so I do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I am the plaintiff in this matter, and that this affidavit is based on my personal knowledge unless otherwise stated. I declare that the following are statements of fact that I believe to be true to the best of my knowledge. I signed it. And then I gave them statements of fact. But I settled my capital gains tax liability in the form of a deed of sovereignty and a declaration of revocable conditional trust. Trust in short. I sent this to HMRC in November 2023. They didn't respond to the HMRC did not respond to the trust. They failed to meet the conditions by the time that I'd given them January 31st, 2024. The trust required HMRC and its agents to confirm that they were acting in a wholly legal manner, consistent with all statutes, including the International Criminal Court Act, the Terrorism Act, and the Accessories and Abettors Act 1861. So the Accessories and Abettors Act 1861 has this provision that if whosoever shall aid and abet, counsel, or procure the commission of any indictable offence, whether the same be an offence at common law or by virtue of any act passed or to be passed, shall be liable to be tried, indicted, and punished as a principal offender. So if I aid and abet and counsel in indictable offence, i.e. the funding of terrorism, then I'm going to be charged, I could risk being charged and indicted as if I was the actual terrorist. No, I don't want to do that. I don't agree with terrorism. That's why I want to make sure I'm acting wholly consistent with the statute. Now, and then say the deed of trust set out the relevant provisions of the aforementioned three acts. And then I set out those provisions that I've been asking them for. And then I said, there have been a series of letters between myself and HMRC in which I repeatedly stated that I've settled the liability via trust, and that unless HMRC can provide me with references in statute or case law that exempt me and HMRC from the provisions of the aforementioned acts, I am acting illegally, because some of that money will be used for facilitating acts of terrorism, genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, and the HMRC are acting illegally by asking me for some such funds. Now, people have said to me, well, couldn't you withhold the portion that's used for military spending? No. If I owe them £1,000 and 2.5%, it's something like that, possibly more, when they, I think there's some creative accounting going on, and I'm shoveling some money over there and everything, and the Secret Service is snaffling up more than we know about. So if I reduce the amount that I pay by 2.5%, well, the amount that I pay, they'll still use 2.5% of that for terrorism and genocide. If I give them £100, they use 2.5% of that. If I give them £97.50, they use 2.5% of the £97.50. There's no getting around this. Some of that money is going to be used for genocide. And by paying, you're breaking the law. And you're an honest, law-abiding person. All of you are. I can just tell by looking at you. Your whole lives are given by acting in honour and legally all the time.
That's why we're all sitting in the basement.
Here we are.
Being recorded.
So then I remind them,
Okay.
and I say, look, this has been settled. You haven't given me any exemptions. The matter is settled. You haven't demonstrated in any way whatsoever that you're acting legally and I'm acting legally by paying you this money. You have 14 days. Now, apparently the standard is 28. I was fed up. 14 days to rebut the affidavit. Now, here's the deal with an unrebutted affidavit. It stands as fact. So I make a sworn declaration. This is court admissible evidence. It stands as truth in law. A sworn affidavit that is unrebutted. HMRC wrote back to me. They said, trusts aren't a valid form of payment, and you have to pay income tax. You have to pay in capital gains tax. You have to pay taxes. No reference to the International Criminal Court Act. No reference to the Terrorism Act or the Accessories and Abettors Act. Nothing. They didn't mention it. So they failed to rebut my affidavit. Am I exempt from paying? Am I exempt from these provisions? Are you exempt? Yes or no? Or you have to pay income tax. Right, okay. But am I exempt from these provisions? Yes or no? It says it applies. This section applies to all of us. Do you have an exemption? Tell me. They just ignored it. So then I sent them a notice of default. Which said, this matter is now settled. You have failed to rebut my affidavit. Please, that's it. That's pretty much it. Now, I'm going to give you one more chance to rebut my affidavit. You've got 7 days now. I haven't had a reply from them. Now, I think what HMRC aren't going to do is put anywhere in writing that, yes, we accept what you're saying. But they've not at any point threatened to take me to court. But you know what they did? They referred me to a debt enforcement agency. In fact, they referred me to 2 debt enforcement agencies. So I got a letter from a debt enforcement agency, and they said, we're acting on behalf of HMRC. You owe this much money. Please contact us to make arrangements to pay. And I wrote back to them and I said, do you have a properly executed, legally compliant court order that allows you to make this claim against me? Unless you do, please do not contact me. Please remove all my details from your database. Don't give you, according to GDPR. You only contact me. And also there's a particular court case. I don't know what it is, I forget the name. They can't come to the door. Because I also said, I do not give you permission to come to my premises at all. I withdraw any consent that you may have to come to my premises. And there was a court case recently to do with council tax, which said that debt enforcement agents cannot act without a properly executed court order. Because otherwise, I know your address, I'll just send you a letter saying, listen, contact me to make arrangements to pay me X amount. Sebastian, what's your address? I'll send you a letter too, right? She said, who are you sending me this letter out of the blue that I got to pay you? I didn't make any arrangement with you. They then wrote to me and then they said, give us your date of birth so we can remove your details from the database. What? No, I'm not giving you my date of birth. Take our correspondence as evidence that you think I am who you think I am and remove my details. Then they sent me another letter. Said, we've looked at your complaint and we've considered it and they didn't find it in my favor. We don't have a court order, but we'd like you to contact us to make arrangements to pay this money. So now I'm going to send them another letter. This is where I'm at with them, right? No, I'm not going to enter any arrangement or contract or agreement with you. Actually, I'm not going to use the word contract because I don't want them thinking about that freeman of the land stuff and everything. I'm going consistent with statute, not common law or case law or anything. It's just statute, their rules. I'm not going to enter into any arrangement or agreement with you. Your communications are causing me great distress. If you write to me again, I will consider this harassment and may take action under there's a particular statute about harassment. I think also malicious communications. All of this, by the way, I've learned through the probity code process and being on the calls. So then, that's the next one. But HMRC also then referred me to another debt enforcement agency. Some other stranger sending me a letter asking me to contact them to make payment to them. So I'll do the same thing with them, but I've learned how to shortcut the process. So I got the letter that I sent the first debt enforcement agency, change the details, and move quicker to do not contact me. You do not have a court order. And I know they haven't got a court order because HMRC haven't taken me to court. Here's what I would do next time. I would do the deed of trust, and I would very quickly move to an affidavit. And then the notice of default. Bye. Now, so I tried it out with capital gains tax. I'm going to look at doing it with other voluntary taxes. Some of them, like VAT, it's not easy. There's somebody that I'm going to be interviewing on my channel who attends these probity calls regularly. He owns a chain of hairdressing salons. He hasn't paid the taxes that he'd have to pay as a business. My understanding is he owes them a lot. As far as we know at Probity Code, not one person, HMRC haven't taken anyone to court. And the only reason I think they're not doing that is because there's no way out. Especially with all the stuff that's happening at the International Criminal Court. Ruling that Netanyahu is a war criminal, Putin's a war criminal.
HMRC is a war criminal.
HMRC, sorry, HMRC is definitely a war criminal. KEYSTONE is a war criminal, right? So there's just no way out. Now these two statutes are based on international conventions that the UK Parliament has ratified. So to change these statutes would mean altering the relationship that Britain has with those international conventions. There's all sorts of vagaries with different statutes and fines and fees and stuff. But what I can say is what the government relies on is for us being afraid and just complying. That's why so many people didn't question, they just rolled up their sleeves and lined up. You can use this process for any fines, fees, taxes, or levies, whether directly or indirectly, they end up going to the consolidated fund. And the thing about trust is when I put the money in trust, the money is no longer mine. I've paid it. It's settled. It's done. HMRC failed to fulfill on their side of the bargain. And the trust is set up in such a way, all I'm asking them to do is to demonstrate that they're acting legally and that I'm acting legally. That's all. I'm not using some sort of tricky ploy or whatever to try and say, no, this is not due because of some made up reason. No, this is statute. When a group of people like a government can drop bombs from the sky on innocents, non-combatants, then this sort of sending out letters, making demands for payments, it's okay. It's a minor. There's a growing movement. There's all sorts of processes. You find them on Telegram and on Rumble and BitChute and BitChute's a bit wild, and ODYSEE, right? And on YouTube, all sorts of stuff, because people are getting more and more pissed off with what this government are doing. They've broken the social contract.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I had, and I think the probity process is different. It's not avoidance, it's not evasion. I paid. I paid in trust. The money's no longer mine. And one of the things HMRC said to me in one of their letters is that you can't use trust as a way of payment. Guess what? HMRC themselves are a trust. This is the thing that I found difficult to get my head around. When I put it in trust, I've paid. I have paid. The conditions of the trust is you can have these funds provided you're not violating the terms of these statutes. You've just told me that you're violating these statutes. You don't get the money. The other thing that I think it has something to do with is the hierarchy of legislation, the hierarchy of law.
Okay.
So you have regulations, right? Then you have below that you have legislation. Below that you have common law. Before that you have trust and rules of equity, which is the foundation for common law. And before that you have natural law and Christian law in this country. So the base layers, what's at the top cannot countermand what's at the bottom. The 60, and I use this in another instance with regards to a particular fine, 1688 Bill of Rights, no fine, fee or forfeiture without conviction. It's still valid. 1688 Bill of Rights. You can't take this money from me unless you take me to court. You can't take me to court because then you're asking the court to compel me to do something that is illegal. But what you could do, come to the probity cause, because that was the other thing that I found really useful. Going through this process, I'm learning it, like learning to ride a bicycle. And that's given me more confidence about it, right? But I always had, with this, the amount of money that they're asking me for, if it gets too hairy, I can always pay. But let me try this out. I'm using the same process that the elites use. They use trust.
Yeah, but usually
I believe in democratization and decentralization. Trust for everyone. Now the calls are really, really useful. Plus also, I listen to every single one of Crypto Rich's videos on this issue. Because he's interviewed many people and spoken to many people about this, right? No, I got it. Well, one of the things for me about it, right, is no matter whatever hardship I go through, it's nothing compared to what people in the Donbass or Kiev or in Yemen or in Tel Aviv or in Gaza have to go through. So that's for me. And Probity Co was set up by Chris Coverdale, and credit to him. And he has shared on videos with Crypto Rich. I know you've all watched them all.
Rich guy sounds awesome.
He's fabulous. He's really, really good. He's used this for paying parking fine. You can use it. Just try it and see. All right.
Well,
Thank you.